Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Father Son Packers podcast, your source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy, and I'm one of your hosts, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, how you doing?
Good. That's a very enjoyable game this week.
Oh, a very enjoyable game. We're going to be talking to you all about it. Packers win 34-13, moved to 4-2 on the year. Still, tight race in the NFC North. I think the Packers are technically fourth in the division.
They're technically fourth. I think
technically third when you look at conference play.
We moved down by winning. I think because what were we third before going into this week?
The thing is, we're like fourth in the division, but somehow when you look at tiebreakers for the conference, we are ahead of the Bears, but we're behind them in the division because of division record. It's very complicated. Because
I thought also maybe we dropped from the 7th seed to the 8th seed in the conference.
Not based on ESPN standings. When you look at theirs, it's telling me that we have the tiebreaker over Chicago because of common opponent, which I didn't know was so high of a tiebreaker. But at the same time,
still the case.
Yeah, so if you look at it today, the Packers are right now in a playoff spot, but it is very tight in the NFC. But we are here today to break down this game against the Cardinals, where the Packers won, like we said, 34-13. Lots to talk about in this game. A very fun game, like you said, Dad. We're going to talk all about how the offense looked, how the defense looked, and maybe even how the special teams looked, unfortunately. But before we get to any of that,
it's not all negative.
But before we get to any of that, just wanted to pitch a couple of things. If you like what you hear today, come give us a follow on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. We tweet out whenever we have new episodes, stats that we find when we're doing research for these episodes, injury reports, roster updates, content from other Packers content creators that we enjoy, one-stop shop and everything Titletown. And please subscribe on your podcast platform of choice, whether that's Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Leave a comment, leave a review. We would really appreciate it. But Dad, let's get to it. Let's start talking about this game. Like we said, Packers-Cardinals. It was a very fun game, like you mentioned. But before we get to the fun stuff, we should probably talk about the injury update. A few players in this game knocked out, but hopefully none super long-term, right, Dad?
That's what it sounds like anyway. So Dontavian Wicks left the game with a shoulder injury, I guess, in the first half and didn't return. But according to Zachary Jacobson on Twitter, I didn't actually hear this quote myself, but Matt LaFleur said he doesn't believe Dontavian Wicks is going to have to miss time with a shoulder injury, but the Packers will see where he's at by the end of the week. Said it's always concerning when you have a player who can't go back in the game, according if that's from LaFleur.
Yeah, he had that one catch and run opportunity where, made a nice move to get the first down and then got tackled hard, went down on that shoulder, and immediately looked like he was in some pain and went to the sideline. And we did not see him again after that.
And that was kind of a classic Wicks move, the whole head and shoulder body juke, where he does like the shifted direction. It's like we're an
audio-only platform, but if you can imagine, both of us are kind of just shimmying side to side a little bit.
It's kind of the move you see people make in, I don't know, like Capture the Flag or flag football, where you're trying to not get touched.
Head fake. Exactly.
A little head fake and change of direction. And
he is really
he breaks for the first down because of it.
Mm-hmm. And so he was one, unfortunately, maybe I think it's going to be a bit touch and go for this week's game, unfortunately. I guess we'll see throughout the week. Keep an eye on Twitter at FatherSonPacker for those injury updates. But Dad, he was not the only one in this game who had to miss some time, right?
Right. Jaden Reed got a sprained ankle on that punt return, which I was like, there's already a flag. Just go down. The play's over. Stop trying to do more with it. But he did come back in the game, though he didn't get as many targets, as many chances for the ball after that. And then Josh Myers got injured late. Was that an ankle? What was that? Do you know what?
I did not actually see an official as to what it was.
Couldn't find it.
I didn't. He also returned to the game, though.
The depth of my research for that was rather, the kiddie pool depth. But I didn't actually find out what it was. But he did come back in the game for like a couple snaps because it was very late when it happened.
Yeah, he went out and they rotated Elton over to center. They put Ryan at left guard and they put Morgan at right guard. And then Myers did come back in. He missed that series and then came back in the next series. So hopefully everything's okay there.
Yeah, but he also didn't have to play very much after that either because it was so late in the game. So we'll see how he is during the week.
Yeah, so that's your injury update. We'll be keeping an eye on Myers, Reed, and Wicks this week. Going to need all of them for this upcoming game this coming week. But, Dad, let's keep it on the Cardinals. And what was your gut check for this game? So just starting off, just emotional reaction. How did this game make you feel?
Yeah, so this is the best game of the season so far on both offense and defense. Both looked good. I got to admit, I got a little nervous at the end of the half after that. Just talk about bad luck interception where Melton just falls down, and he's like desperately scrambling to get back up and touch the ball. but it was already in flight and just goes right where he was standing and through the defender. And so at that point, I'm like, oh, crap. They're getting the ball after the half, too. Are they going to get like 2 touchdowns here and get it down to 3?
Like, I did think it was going to be like touchdown, interception, touchdown, start the ball at the half, touchdown. It's like, okay, so we thoroughly outplayed them, and it's a 24-21 game with a whole half of football left. Cool. Very sick. No, my gut check was very similar to yours. Outside of that brief stretch at the end of the first half, I thoroughly enjoyed this game. It was very fun to watch. It was a really good showing from Green Bay in at least 2 of the 3 phases. And the offense looked really good for most of the game, and the defense looked really good for most of the game. And it was, just a really good showing. That was my gut check. It was a fun game to watch. But, Dad, let's move on to something maybe a little bit more analytical. Let's move on to, our favorite thing, the numbers. And let's start off with the biggest moment of the game. We go by ESPN win probability added. This is like our play of the game thing. It's essentially the play that swung the win probability the most. And for this game, it was the Packers' first touchdown to Jaden Reed, which moved the win probability from a 66% chance of the Packers winning to a 72.7% chance of the Packers winning, a 6.7% swing. And from there, the Packers never looked back. After the first quarter, the win probability never dropped below an 86.3% for Green Bay. So despite maybe some nerves on our end, the win probability never really dropped that far for Green Bay. And they were firmly in control of this game for almost the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things would have to really go wrong for them to give up those 21 straight points. But I got to give the defense some credit. Like shut down the short field to give up only a field goal, and then held them without a touchdown the first possession after the half as well.
Yeah, there were just a few moments where they lost focus, but other than that, they were really good. But Dad, we'll talk about the defense a little bit later. Let's start off with the offense, though. And let's start talking about what they're saying. What is the coaching staff saying after this game? What are the players saying after this game? We got any good quotes from this one?
Well, I thought this quote from LaFleur's coverage is a little bit, a peek behind the curtain and a confession of his own. Of what he usually said, that touchdown pass to Rome was not a very good play call. I think it's the way he worded it. I mean, they had to cover 0, and Jordan just kept drifting, throwing up to him. But Dobbs did a very good job of seeing the ball and adjusting and coming back to it.
Yeah, and it was great to get him back in this game. I mean, 2 touchdowns in this one for Romeo Dobbs. The first one, does a really good job with a hands catch. The second one, it does a good job just adjusting to a ball in the air. Love gave him a chance, and he made the most of it. And I was actually impressed that he was able to not just go out at the 1 there, and he was able to actually get the ball past the pylon. That was pretty impressive.
Right. I thought his foot was going to hit the chalk before he got to the end zone on that one. Exactly.
Same. But Dad, speaking of offense, speaking of some good things, having Romeo Dobbs back after having that 1-game suspension against the Rams and seeing him, huddle up with the other receivers after scoring a couple of touchdowns, everything seems to be, A-okay there. But let's start off with some other good things on offense, Dad. And we'll go, good things offense, bad things defense, good things defense, a little good around the bad sandwich, a little compliment sandwich. What was the first thing that stuck out to you on offense where you were like, okay, they really did this well today?
Well, the most obvious thing you've already got in yours, so I'll go to which of course is the love story, but I'll let you get the details on that one. So I was bringing up some other things. The pass blocking by the right side of the line was really good today. No sacks or pressures by Tom or Ryan, and only 1 pressure given up by Morgan. Ryan specifically is his best PFF pass blocking grade of his career at 85.4, and it was the best offensive grade of his career. So that's he's arrow trending up.
Yeah, and he played really well after, struggling last week against the Rams. He didn't have the strongest showing last week. But this week, like you said, he was an absolute mauler on that right side of the line. I thought actually both him and Morgan played quite well in this game, and we'll talk about that right guard rotation a little bit later and some things that made us think. But yeah, like you mentioned, the offensive line was really good, and what that offensive line being really good allowed was Jordan Love to have a fantastic day. I mean, he was probably, we'll do this at the end, but he was my player of the game, hands down. Like you mentioned earlier, he did have that 1 interception where, Bo Melton fell down. It's not Bo Melton's fault, but it's just one of those plays where it's like, wow, I can't believe that was intercepted. That sucks.
It's so much bad luck. It's not even one of those bad luck where it pops off the receiver's hands in the air where they get the reception, where it's not the QB's fault. This is nobody's fault.
Exactly.
The pass was right on target, and the turf just gives out underneath Melton's
Yeah,
feet.
and it was a wet, rainy day, and it was honestly surprising to not see more Packers slip. But for Jordan Love on the day, I mean, he was fantastic. He was 22 of 32 for 258 yards, 4 touchdowns, that one pick. He is the only player so far this season to have multiple 4-touchdown passing games. He had also added on 3 scrambles for 15 yards with 2 first downs on those, which were really impactful at the time. He was second on the week in EPA per dropback. He was 6th on the week in yards per attempt. I mean, just a fantastic day from Love in this one. He was on fire.
Yeah, and I think the other note that I've heard people talk about for those 4 touchdowns is the first QB with 2 4-touchdown games in a row at Lambeau since Favre.
When it's rainy out and
it's another
and
one of
the
those
moon
we talk
is
about these like very niche stats because it's not even like they don't even say two games in a row.
And the
it's
new
like 2
moon
games
is in
at Lambeau
phase, and it's in October, and but no, he had a fantastic day. Any stats you want to throw my way are always fun. But no, he was great. He was able to spread the ball around really well. It wasn't like he was just peppering one guy. I mean, I think there were several different receivers in this game who were very impactful. Watson had some really big catches, the 4th down over the middle, the big touchdown, another couple of conversions. Dobbs, we already mentioned, had a couple of nice touchdowns. Jaden Reed had a really good game, had that first touchdown. They were just moving the ball around. Ben Sims had a really good game. I just wanted to shout him out.
Sims looked good. Give a little shout out. Yeah. And he, somebody mentioned this, that he has like the fastest 40 time on the team for a tight end. It's actually a little bit better than
that. Can't be right. There's no way. It's faster than Musgraves.
Yeah. Because Musgraves 40 time was not as good as you might have expected based on his on-field time, which was the best ever for a tight end at the Senior Bowl.
That's right. He was like a GPS tracking star.
Right. And then his 40 time, you didn't quite match that like you might have expeced. But
but Sims, he looks
Sims
good.
A little faster than you might think.
Yeah, and he had a couple of nice catches. I've always been high on Ben Sims. There was talk over the offseason. It's like, oh, are they going to keep Ben Sims or Tyler Davis? And I was like, please, for the love of God, keep Ben Sims. Like Ben Sims seems like a real deal NFL player. Tyler Davis is a fine player, but I don't think he has the ceiling of Ben Sims. And Sims is younger, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he looked good in this game, filling in for Musgrave, who's now on IR, unfortunately. But then another offensive thing that I wanted to touch on that was good, and really the first thing I wanted to touch on was just the consistency in this game. And we'll talk about it. They were just so much more consistent on offense and on defense. And just to look at the offensive side of the football, I mean, weeks 1 to 5, a lot of it was just like, oh, here's a 60-yard bomb to Jaden Reed. Oh, and then we're going to go 3 and out. Oh, here's like a 50-yard catch and run to Tucker Kraft. Oh, and then we're going to go 3 and out. It was really stop and start. Like their EPA per play numbers would be really good because they would hit those explosive plays that would really bump it up. But, they're consistent down-to-down success rate.
We talked about last week. It was like they're like the bottom 5 in success rate or something.
Well, it was to the point where I even subtitled last week's episode "Big Play Merchants?" because I was like, are we just going to have to subsist on big plays all year? That feels really tough. But on offense, like you mentioned, success rate. Here's some numbers for you, and these are per RBSTM. They had yet to post a success rate on offense above 14th in a week and had not gone above 44% success rate in a game so far this year. So they had been pretty much stuck at middle of the pack or worse on offense in offensive success rate. Normally, I'd give you the whole weeks 1 to 5 number, but given the fact that Malik Willis started a couple of games and those success rates were really poor, I didn't want to, that data is not as representative as of like the offense they want to run. But this week in this game, they were 5th on the week in success rate at 52.1%. So they were successful on over half of their plays in this game, which is a massive uptake. Going all the way up to 5th from where you'd never been above, middle of the pack. That's a really big improvement there and a really big improvement in consistency.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of that's the whole progression of the offense down the field a lot cleaner. They're having more success down to down rather than having to being forced to make big plays. I mean, there were a lot of times where they were forced to make big plays and like third down and long, which did not go well in some games.
The big thing is the not being stuck in 3rd and long all the frickin' time. Last game we talked about their average down and distance to go on 3rd down was 3rd and 11. Like it was 3rd and 10.8 was their average to go in against the Rams. And there's a reason they only went 1 of 8 on 3rd down in that game is because every 3rd down felt impossible. And so being able to stay on track in this game, I mean, I think they went 7 of 12 on 3rd down in this game, if I remember correctly. But their ability just to, stay in reasonable down and distance, being able to, 7 of 12 on 3rd down in this game, being able to stay in reasonable down and distance was just such a big, impactful piece in this game. And just down down-to-down consistency was way better. But yeah, so that was actually my biggest positive, but I did want to shout out Jordan Love first. But Dad, any other positives on the offensive side of the football?
I have a few little things to talk about. So I want to give a shout out to the backup running backs. They had 75 yards on 11 carries for 6.8 per carry. And Wilson also had a very high level 79.1 pass blocking grade. And both Wilson and Brooks,
yeah, Chris Brooks
ended up in the top 11 on the week in yards after contact per attempt. Brooks was 6th and Wilson was 11th out of 46 backs. And Wilson was also 11th in elusive rating.
Yeah, and he also
all the backs in the week.
I was going to say, and he also caught a nice little screen pass. They both, and Brooks came in just mostly for mop-up duty at the very end, but,
yes.
He ran the clock out, so.
Right. It's nice that, that your backup could come in on mop-up duty and not just fall down to the line of scrimmage, that you run into a crowd and you can't get anywhere. It's nice to actually be able to get some yards and run some clock.
Exactly. But yeah, so definitely a lot of positives on offense. Not as many negatives. I still have
a few more positives.
Okay. We'll take it away.
Things.
Keep going.
They had the 5th best separation for pass catchers on the week per NFL Pro.
Mm-hmm. Shout out Matt LaFleur and also the route runners, but also shout out Matt LaFleur.
And overall, the run game had the 5th most yards before contact on the week, according to NFL Pro.
Okay.
And they're 4th in EPA per play on third down. So last week they were 28th.
Yeah, that's what happens when you go 1 of 8 on third down.
13th, 5th, and 11th. So
had not been above 13th in a game yet. Is that what it was? Hadn't been above 13th in a game yet?
No, I had one that was 5th against the Colts in week 2. But other than that, it was like 11th, 13th, 21st, and 28th. And they were first per NFL Pro and EPA per pass as a team on the week.
Sweet. You love
to
see it.
The whole operation was really running smoothly.
Yeah, and I mean Jordan Love, like you mentioned, was really fantastic, especially on third down. Being able to stay in those third manageables really helped them out. The offense was just cooking in this one. The only negative that I was able to find, and I had to do some digging, and this was more just like a feeling I had, and then I had to look it up. But the only thing they really struggled with was first down running. These numbers are per NFL Pro. It's funny because last week they couldn't pass on first down, and this week they struggled to run on first down, but they were only successful on 22.7% of their first down runs in this game, which, for reference, the Cowboys are dead last this season at 24.3%. So they were worse in this game running the ball on first down than the worst team in the league has been this season. So that wasn't great. They really struggled a little bit on first downs. They were getting stuffed at the line a good amount. But that was really the only negative I was able to find is just the first down running.
Yeah, I was digging actually to find this. The offense was so good. I was rummaging around through like every niche stat and situational stat in NFL Pro to find something. So, here's what I found. So they were only 18th on the week in EPA per pass when blitzed, and only 17th on EPA per pass to slot targets. However, when I was so this is actually going back to the good, because I was rummaging through every stat to find what they were bad at.
You just can't help yourself, huh? You just had to go right back to the good.
Because this is what this week was. They were 4th in the league in EPA per pass to the intermediate targets, 7th to deep targets, 9th to short targets. So that's one of the worst ones. So 17th on quick passes. That wasn't so good. But first in when they took over 2.5 seconds, 3rd under pressure, 3rd with play action, 6th when there's no play action, 1st when there's no blitz, 2nd on wide targets, 6th on tight targets, and 6th to backfield targets. They're basically, good almost everywhere this week in the passing game.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that quick game, number was, sunk a little bit by that interception that should have just been a completion and a first down.
Where it doesn't even count as a turnover-worthy play.
Exactly. And it's like, it really was right there, huh? And it would have...
I think it would have hit it right in the numbers if he didn't fall down. The pass is right on target.
And that's the thing. It was like, it would have been a first down. It would have just kept that drive moving. Maybe they scored just again. But no, yeah, not everything can be perfect. I guess we can't complain too much. But anyway, Dad, that does it for your offensive negatives, right? I mean, I didn't really have anything else to talk about on that one.
I was rummaging. I had trouble finding anything negative to say about the offense.
It was a fantastic game. They scored 34 points and, a ton of explosive plays in this one and down-to-down consistency. I mean, it's exactly what you want to see. Dad, anything?
Oh, speaking of explosive plays, you were talking about that pass, the touchdown pass to Watson. I heard somebody tell a little snippet about how on the sideline they kind of brought back that play from a previous week's game plan.
Oh, okay.
And to get Watson on that run across in front of Buda Baker. And, that was just, I don't know, something they saw during the game. They said, "Oh, we can get a."
I mean, that game was here. That play was, a pretty big coverage bust from the Cardinals. So they clearly knew something about the rules there because Buda Baker clearly thinks he has some kind of help to the inside, and then Watson's just running alone. There's no one there, and I think they showed Buda Baker just hands up to the sky, like, where did my help go? Where's the other safety?
Yeah, and Watson hit like 20.6 miles per hour, something like that, over 20 miles per hour on that. And I don't think he's even topping out either.
I was going to say, he didn't look like he was really even opening the throttle at all. He had a really nice game.
So that's a good sign for his ankle that I don't think he really, opened the throttle up all the way and still was over 20 miles per hour.
And that's a good point you mentioned is that, that injury 2 weeks ago against the Vikings looked really nasty at the time.
I thought it was going to be an IR. For a month and not, being back so soon.
And for anyone to only miss one game coming off of that is great. But for him specifically, after having struggled with injuries so far throughout his career, for him to come into this game and be back and look like Christian Watson. I mean, that fourth down catch was a really nice catch. The touchdown catch was big, had a couple other nice catch and runs. There was one where they had him, like Jordan Love just popped it over the edge rusher who was in his face on kind of like a boot play, a little boot action leak out. But no, Watson looked great in this game. But Dad, I did want to ask you just one other fun thing for the offense. What do you think Jordan Love's best throw of the day was in this one? I'm taking the Watson fourth down, over the middle, lace it over a linebacker.
Three defenders.
I've already mentioned it 3 times because I am just geeking out about that throw. That throw is nasty.
That was a great throw. That probably is the one that will stick in your head the most.
Although, in terms of physical feats, the sprinting straight backwards, heave it to Romeo Doubs at the corner.
He managed to get it far enough downfield, even though he's like going dead the other way.
I was telling my friends, and because they were making fun of me, they were saying they're like, that's not a good throw. I was like, well, technically, that's exactly where you would want to put a back shoulder ball. Like, I'm just saying, like, I can't tell you he did that on purpose, but that's exactly where you would want to put it.
He threw a moon ball up there too.
I know that was a crazy throw. I mean, if you watch the slow mo of it, neither foot is on the ground. He's falling backwards, sprinting backwards with the guy in his face, and just heaves it pretty much just core, back, and arm strength, and just right on the pylon. Exactly where you want it. But Dad,
and again, he looked good. He looked good running. I think his
Love,
knee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, loved it. His knee might be like fully functional right now in terms of his running speed.
Yeah, I mean, he's still wearing the brace, but
I think they might just decide we might just do this for another month or two just to be safe.
Yeah, he's still wearing the brace. Like we mentioned, those 3 scrambles for 15 yards, 2 first downs. Those are some big scrambles at the time, his ability to convert a couple third downs in that manner too. But Dad, as we close up here with the offense, any things that, just left you thinking, left you puzzling, left you...
So the things that made me think were, is our backup running depth more effective than it has been in years? Or is the run blocking improving? Which is it? Because I feel like the backup running backs are coming in and making good chunk gains.
Yeah, no, and I think a lot of that has to do with, Elton's having a fantastic year this year. He's playing very, very well. I think, as good as Runyon was at times in pass protection, run blocking was never really his strong suit. And so I think getting some more Mauler types in there with Ryan and Morgan has really helped. And I think having Rasheed Walker, going into his second year as a full-time starter, I think he's just improving as well. Because last year I thought he looked good in pass blocking rather, but run blocking really gave him some fits and starts at times. And I think just everyone on the line has kind of made some improvements. And then you got your secondary blockers as well making strides. All of those wide receivers and tight ends who are second year players now, I think, are making strides as blockers, which is also really awesome.
Yeah, and something that this offense, or LaFleur's offense, is always depended on, having wide receivers blocking downfield in the run game.
Exactly, yeah. It's a major piece of it. And like I mentioned, one of the things that made me think, and we're already kind of talking about that, is this right guard rotation. Do you want to just pivot over to that really quick? Because that's kind of something I'm keeping my eye on.
I think, yeah.
Is this going to be the whole season, is my question. Ryan didn't play great last week, but played really well this week. He didn't allow a single pressure. Morgan allowed 1, I think. I think the split was almost exactly 50-50. I think it was like 40-38 in terms of snaps. Do you think they're going to do this rotation all year, or what are you thinking?
it's looking pretty good right now. I think Ryan might be playing better than they expected.
Well, yes, I think he's 100% playing better than anyone expected, I think.
So I think their original plan was that Morgan was going to, split for a while and then take the job. But right now, Ryan is actually playing really well. So I'm not quite sure where this is. I don't know where this is headed at the moment.
I have a question for you. Do you think, so this is small sample size, Ryan didn't play very well last week and had to play all the snaps. And something he has struggled with in the past is just conditioning. His first year in the league, he wasn't in very good shape, didn't play much at all. Last year, he was in a rotation. I
think the answer to that was zero on offense. Maybe you got a special team snap in there.
But anyway, my point is, do you think a rotation helps him play better as well? Where it's like he doesn't have as much of a physical load on his plate, and he can take some series off, and that allows for him to play better at right guard because he has struggled with conditioning in the past. And they've mentioned, and in his defense, they've talked about he came into camp in much better shape this year. He looks like he's in better shape this year. He's moving around well. But I just wonder, is it a plus for him too to also have a rotation?
Right, maybe some of that heavy feet we see sometimes is him getting tired.
I don't know. Maybe,
but maybe less workload, more efficiency on the offensive line. It's not something you usually think about. Workload on the offensive line.
Yeah, well, I think usually you don't have the luxury of having a first round pick to rotate in and just. And Morgan's played well. I thought he's looked pretty good. He's moving guys off the ball in the run game. Did give up that one pressure, but
yeah, and I think they didn't grade his PFF didn't grade his run blocking. So I saw one where he may have let the guy get around for the stop, but I thought generally he was moving people.
Yeah, there was one play where he went to the wrong guy, I think, and neither him nor Myers blocked his man, and so it was a bit of a mess there.
The pressure was that the pressure or was that a run stop?
I can't remember.
And then the guy comes through the line.
Yeah, so I think I guess they'll just keep doing this, and as long as it's working, they'll just keep going with it. And then the other thing that made me think was this was a tweet from Dusty Evely. Shout out to Dusty, great follow on Twitter at Dusty Evely. Packers under center snap rates since Love came back from his injury. Week 4, 5.4% under center. Week 5, 22.4% under center. And week 6, 35.7% under center. So that is growing rapidly, and I think it kind of maybe, lends some credence to the what you were saying earlier about how it seems like Love's knee is maybe just getting a little bit better each week and hopefully getting closer to 100%.
Yeah, and I think his running speed looks good. I guess the whole how nervous are you about him getting caught in traffic is a different metric. So you have the straight line speed, the change of direction, and how you can maneuver in
exactly
tight spaces.
Yeah,
are all different things about how well that knee is doing. But you also you have a little note about the line, an unusual lineup, and is that the lineup of the future?
It's a good question. So yeah, what you're talking about is that we mentioned briefly, but the line switch they had when Myers went out, when they went to Walker at left tackle, Sean Ryan at left guard, Elton Jenkins at center, Jordan Morgan at right guard, and then Zach Tom at right tackle. It's interesting, right? And if you want to talk about the future, I suppose we can. But Myers is a free agent. Well, Myers is a free agent after
Listeners,
this year.
Could you hear the eye roll?
Myers is a free agent after this year.
Right.
And the issue, this is why I don't want to really focus on this because it's an issue. Both left tackle and right tackle are going into the final year of their deal next year. So you might end up having to pay both tackles over this offseason, which is not a place you want to be because Tom is going to be expensive. And Walker's probably going to be pretty pricey too because he's playing pretty well at left tackle. And left tackles are expensive. So that's why I'm like, if you want to talk about the future, but I think it's a complicated situation to really get into right now because there's a lot of guys that are going to need money.
They are 100% signing Tom to a top-level contract.
Exactly. And Walker will probably want a new contract as well. I doubt he'll want to play on the last year of his deal. And then I got to double check what Elton's deal looks like as well. So I'm not as sure about that one.
I don't remember how much it is per year.
And I believe Sean Ryan will be going into the final year of his deal as well. So there's that.
Yeah, it's going to get complicated fast.
Exactly. Which is why I said if you want to talk about the future, we can, but it's going to get messy.
It's going to get messy because they've got so many young players who will start to need contracts.
Well, if you think about it,
near future,
this is what happens when you have a really good draft class. They all come up for contracts at the same time. So players who are going into the last year of their deal, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Zach Tom, Sean Ryan, Rasheed Walker, Kingsley Enagbare. All 6 of them will be going into the final year of their deal next year. I don't know what you do with that information, but that's why I said if you want to talk about the future, we can. But let's just focus on this game for now, and let's focus on the present.
That could be its own podcast.
Exactly. But let's move on to the defensive side of the football, Dad, and let's start talking there. What are they saying? What are the coaching staff saying? What are the players saying? I thought it was a nice performance from the defense, all things considered, except for that brief stretch in the middle.
Yeah, and LaFleur, I think, agrees with you. He said, I thought our guys played very disciplined, which is something you have to do when playing a guy of his caliber, referring to Kyler Murray. That they stayed their spots. They did not really let him break out. I think even when he scrambled out, they often had somebody there for containment.
You can say, 7 carries for 14 yards. He was completely shut down running the football. They did a fantastic job stopping him from scrambling.
Yeah, there were 1 or 2 plays where he got around the corner, but there was a secondary defender there waiting for him.
Yeah, and because you see so many times where he just turns the corner there and just runs up the sideline for like 12, 15 yards, or like even cuts back inside and gets another 10. But yeah, I thought Bullard
50
exactly. I thought Bullard specifically did a really good job helping contain his scrambles. I thought there were several times where he was turning the corner there, and then all of a sudden Bullard was there too, and he just ran out of bounds for like a 4-yard gain. And I was like, okay, like we can live with that. Obviously, you'd rather have gotten him down in the backfield, but only giving up 4 yards on a scramble like that is survivable. And I thought, like Matt LaFleur said, they did a really good job with that. And I thought they did a really good job in general, Dad. But, we like to end with the good. So let's start with the bad. What were some things on defense that you thought they could have cleaned up?
So, according to NFL Pro, they gave up the 9th worst target separation of the week at 3.7. And second worst of the year for Green Bay, behind only the Tennessee game, where they gave up like 4.4 yards of separation. And maybe in the Tennessee game, I guess they were getting beat by Hopkins a bit in that game. But also, how much are you scared of the Tennessee passing offense?
Fair.
But, and then they were, according to NFL Pro, they gave up the 8th most yards before contact on the week in the run game. So that's, you don't want to be in the, bottom quarter of the league for anything really.
Yeah.
Per PFF, they had their worst team tackling grade on the week at 51.9 with 8 misses out of 57 chances.
Interesting.
And that 14% was their highest rate of missed tackle in the year.
It didn't feel that bad watching the game. That's interesting. I don't remember that many missed tackles. I gotta watch it again.
Yeah, so I just looking through the numbers, and so it was their worst missed tackle rate of the year. The other games were mostly like 11%, with one week 2 being 13%, and so this one was 14, which would put you in the bottom half of the league. I forget how far down. I was gonna go through the entire numbers, but it's not listed so simply, so I'd have to actually go through the spreadsheet and calculate it, which I didn't have time to do this morning as I was cramming for this episode. As Mel said, this morning, you mean you didn't finish last night?
You'd say the apple does not fall far from the tree. The tree is not far from the apple. We got to go reverse.
I think you're going the wrong direction here. Yeah,
but
the tree did not get up and walk away from the apple.
Find the apple and look up, and you will see the tree. Is that the inverse of this one?
Yeah. McDuffie particularly had an uncharacteristic bad tackling day with 3 misses.
Oh, he's goodness! I didn't realize he had 3 misses. That's
he's mostly been pretty good on the last year plus or 2 years. So yeah, this one was he had a little trouble with this with 3 misses. This is, I think, probably the most he's had in a game in his career.
Yeah,
and he came in with only 2 misses on the year or something like that. I can't remember the exact number.
Yeah, and like you said, the defense was really good. So we're kind of picking nits in a lot of ways. My negative was, they still aren't getting pressure from the pass rush, and I will say the caveat and the silver lining in this one, the pass rush, I think the numbers are not good in this one. You look at the numbers on the week from NFL Pro. The Packers had the lowest pressure rate on the week at just 19.4%. They also had the fewest total number of pressures with just 7 total pressures, despite being in a positive game script for almost the whole game. They're going to pass a lot. The time to pressure was also bad. They were 31st on the week at 3.28 seconds, so they weren't pressuring fast. I will say, though, the silver lining is, in all the other games where they were unable to rush the passer, the time to throw, like the length of time the quarterback had the ball in his hands, was also really, really high. In this game, though, Kyler was having to throw the ball fast. He had the 5th fastest time to throw in the league this week at 2.57 seconds. over the course of the whole season, even if you include this game, the Packers are the fifth slowest. They allow the fifth longest time to throw in the league. And so that was a big departure from that. They at least weren't letting Kyler just hold the ball back there forever. They were at least making him get off of his spot a little bit, even if the pressure numbers weren't great. And he was at least, his clock was sped up at least. So I will say there's a silver lining there, but the underlying pressure numbers were still not very good in this game. And obviously you'd like to see them improve a little bit. I did think it was better than the numbers maybe say, though.
Yeah. So the question I have on this, like in terms of how the pressures are,
I can tell you exactly how
measured.
the pressures are counted.
Right. Because
it is within
for NFL Pro, it's when your chip is within 2 yards.
Well, I can tell you, it's either within 2 yards of the quarterback when the ball is thrown, or within 1.5 yards at any time. So that is a pressure in their mind. That quantifies a pressure.
Right. So, that might read a little differently if you think about, was Kyler Murray moving off of his spot like really early before anybody got too close?
Mm-hmm.
And so
and he was
affected
times,
a little bit by the pass rush because he's just moving to a new spot and resetting.
And I think that's a good way of putting it, Dad, is like the pass rush was not getting a lot of pressure, but Kyler was at least cognizant of it, and it was speeding up his process, and it was making him move off of his spot. And so I think it was still impactful in that way, even if they weren't necessarily getting as close to the passer as you'd like. Any other negatives on defense, though, Dad? I've got a lot of positives, and one of them ties right into this, so I might just right into it if you don't have any
I've already, I think, gone through my whole list of negatives. So,
well, like I said, they did a really good job of not letting Kyler hold the ball, containing him both as a runner and play extender. I mentioned, 7 carries, 14 yards. That's really good. Just 4 scrambles allowed. That's also really awesome. But like we mentioned, it sped up Kyler's process. He had the 5th fastest time to throw on the week. And we talked about coming into this game, when he was able to hold the ball, he was really dangerous. And actually, even when he was able to hold the ball in this game, the Packers secondary did a really good job just staying with their guys. So coming into this game, per PFF, when Kyler was able to hold the ball longer than 2.5 seconds, he was averaging 9.1 yards per attempt, which was 11th best in the league. In this game, though, on such plays where he was able to hold the ball a long time, just 3.7 yards an attempt. That was 27th on the week. And that's just a really good job from the secondary of seeing him as a play extender and staying with their mans on second reaction plays. Like we mentioned, they were able to speed up his process. He had to throw the ball quickly. And I just thought that the secondary's ability to stick with their men on those second reaction plays was a really big deal in this game.
Yeah, I thought for me, what I was looking at is kind of overall for the defense. They only gave up 1.3 points per drive. Coming in, Arizona's averaging 2.43, and they only gave up 30 yards per drive, and Arizona's averaging 37. For the year, that points per drive would be third best. And up until now, Green Bay had given up, 1.9 yards per drive, points per drive, and 32 yards per drive. So a little better than they've been doing on the year in this matchup. So kind of holistically, the defense was performing well in the things you really care about as a unit.
Yeah, and way more consistent too. Like we mentioned with the offense, just a much more consistent day from the defense. Weeks 1 to 5, they were allowing a 48.5% success rate, which was 29th in the league. I mean, very close to dead last in the league. And then this week, 44.8% success rate allowed, which wasn't fantastic. It was 17th on the league, 17th on the week rather, but improvement going from, dang near dead last all the way to average. If you can be average in success rate and then still force 3 turnovers like they did in this game, that's, going to be a big jump there, a big improvement. And the ability to just have a little bit more down to down consistency, even if it wasn't, fantastic, to have some consistency was good.
Do they already have more turnovers or as many as they did all of last year?
I think they have 17 and last year they had 18. So I think they are one short.
Quite got there yet. But they're getting close after only 6 games. So just over a third of the way through the season.
Exactly. I mean, you love to see it. The ability to take the ball away, I think, has been. I mean, do you want to talk about the young guys? I think we need to talk about the young guys.
I have a whole section here on good things. I have the rookie defensive lineups.
All right.
So I have Edgerrin Cooper. He had played a career high 38 snaps. He was second most amongst linebackers. He had the highest PFF defensive grade among the linebacker group at 81. The best run defense, the best tackling, and the best pass defense amongst linebackers.
You know what stood out to me for him? There were 2 plays that stood out to me. There was one where he kind of, just meets, I think it must have been Connor, could have been Benson, I guess, meets him in the hole, just sticks him, stuffs him, just no gain. That was the first play. And then the second one was a little check down to, I think, the Cardinals tight end. And he just grabs him by the ankle and pulls him down, one-on-one open field tackle. And those are the two plays that stood out to me, because those not to throw shade, those are two plays that I don't think the other linebackers on the roster can make right now. And that's why I think, he played 38 of, I think, 58 snaps, I think, on defense in this game.
I think that's right. I think there were
and
58.
So close to around 2/3 of snaps. Do you think we're going to get to a point where he's just the guy?
It's his snap count of the year.
It's his highest snap count of the year. It's the first time he's had more snaps than McDuffie in a game. So he's clearly graduated to the second linebacker. Do you think there's a chance he ever graduates to the number one linebacker, Dad?
I think it's in the realm of possibility. There's going to be some resistance because of the way they have Walker wearing the green dot. I think that's the thing they have to get over. Because Walker got himself caught in the wash again and got out of position on the run play. I think we talked about this a little bit about whether Walker would be better without the green dot, and you just
with
let
less
him
on his
attack.
plate.
Yeah, just let him and change the style that he plays at to try to use what he's best at, which is basically just go hunt the ball. I think in some ways because of his athletic ability.
Well, you got some people saying maybe you should take the green dot and give it to someone else so he can focus more on, the actual play. You got other people saying, maybe he should be the weak side linebacker and you should move Cooper to the mic. I don't think they're going to do anything like that in season. That feels like a kind of a drastic change. But yeah, there's a lot of things on the table, because I did think, watching this game, one of the few defensive players who had a bit of a rough day was Quay Walker. I mean, he was in the wrong gap on several different big runs for the Cardinals. He leaves you for wanting more, right? He leaves you wanting more.
Yeah, and he had one of the worst defensive grades for the regular players. Yeah. And he just sometimes gets himself at a bad angle or the wrong position on some of the run plays, and they lose contain.
So that's Cooper. I thought he played really well in this game. I thought he has made a case to get even more snaps, and he keeps getting more snaps each game, which you love to see. But he was not the only young player who had a really good game.
Nope. Evan Williams played 38 snaps, so not the whole game like last week. But he played 8 in the slot, 28 as free safety, and 2 in the box. Led the team with an elite 93.3 defense and a 91.2 coverage grade. He led the team in both of those. Well, I guess it's funny. PFF actually has Carl Brooks leading the team in coverage grade. I'm not quite sure how that happened.
Are they counting the forced fumble on the screen as he was in?
That must be the forced fumble because they don't actually have him. It doesn't really make sense. So it must be
don't worry about
forced fumble.
But Williams, I mean, that punch out. I mean, also I wanted to point out the defense he had on the zone read.
Murray. Yeah, I have both of those. The peanut punch, the forced fumble, and the stop of Murray on the QB run option.
Yeah, and
he did a great job of a solo tackle.
He made stopping Kyler in the open field look not very, very, very hard. It's very, very, very hard to get Kyler Murray to the ground when he has you one-on-one in space. And Evan Williams just stayed there, didn't let him. Kyler tried to get him to bite inside by planting inside, but Evan Williams was like, nope, Lucas Van Ness has that. I am not moving. I am staying outside contained. And I mean, he's just such a fantastically smart player. Clearly always knows what's going on.
He's really good one-on-one in space.
He's just really good. I think he stays really good. But yeah, like you mentioned, he played, 38 to 58 snaps, almost all deep, a few in the slot. Bullard, moved down and played, I think it was most of his snaps, 2/3 of his snaps in the slot and 1/3 of his snaps deep. So he played 54 of 58 snaps, Bullard did. And then Keyshawn was your new outside corner.
So Bullard had 35 of the snaps in the slot, more than half of the team's snaps, and 16 at free safety and 3 in the box, and led the secondary with 5 tackles.
Yeah, and Bullard I thought had a really good game, like we mentioned earlier, containing Kyler as a scrambler. And then my other thing I wanted to touch on, since we're already talking about the secondary, because we talked about last week, with the Rams, Evan Williams was your new starting safety. He played 100% of snaps last week, played 2/3 this week, and then Bullard played slot last week, and then Nixon played outside corner last week, and then this week we're like, oh, that was interesting, but like, was that just because Jair was missing? But no, in this game Jair was back. And, Williams didn't play 100% of the snaps, but played a good chunk of them at deep safety, played probably the majority of the snaps at deep safety next to McKinney. Bullard, played some snaps at deep safety and 2/3 of the snaps in the slot, played most of the snaps in the slot. And then Keyshawn Nixon is your new starting outside corner, Dad. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is not something I thought going into the season. It's like, okay, maybe we want to get some. We had this idea of could Bullard be playing slot, but I did not expect it to be at the expense of the Stokes and Valentine competition.
We talked all offseason where it's like, oh, well, it's going to be Jair and then one of Stokes or Valentine. That's a really big competition for cornerback too. And, Keyshawn, is he really the guy that you want on the field there? Like, wouldn't the defense be better if you got one of the young guys on? And we were right about that part, but we were not right about the cornerback 2 part. It's so interesting because in this game, Nixon plays most of the snaps outside corner and played pretty well, I would say. And then Stokes plays a handful of snaps. Corey Ballantyne plays like 1 snap, and Carrington Valentine doesn't even see the field in this game, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and 0 makes you think, is there some like, he's got nicked up that we don't know about?
Well, he had been dealing with that ankle injury previously, but he had came back last week. So yeah, I'm kind of confused because it was weird because he was behind Stokes and then he was ahead of Stokes and then so to start the season it was Stokes and then by like week 3 it was like, oh, it's Valentine and Stokes, but Valentine's taking more of the snaps, and then Valentine got hurt again and then he's back again and then now it's Stokes again, and I'm just kind of confused as to what's going on with this cornerback too, but it seems like it's just Nixon now with some secret third option. So
right. And maybe this is what is going to be happening. They say like they really like Nixon. They really like Nixon, and Hafley likes Nixon, but the rookies look good, and
got to play that
solution.
I guess so.
And I think maybe his Nixon getting better. Before when he'd go in an outside corner,
it was a nightmare. It was.
It was a kind of adventure, and he's getting more better at that, more solid outside corner. And kind of related to that is what I have my notes on related. It's almost identical. That big nickel looks like our best defense.
Yeah. And I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all. I think.
And then one of the two, and I think you've also seen in that big nickel more Walker and Cooper together as the 2 linebackers on the field there.
As the more you can get Cooper, Williams, and Bullard on the field, I think just better things are going to happen. And however you have to do that, just ride with it. But Dad, anything else on the defense, or should we go to the third phase? Go to special teams.
the dragon with its tongue sticking out phase.
Okay, let's move to special teams. Narveson misses.
Yeah, you have just a trail of dots there. I was expecting maybe just like some ditto marks.
A lot of ellipses. A lot of ellipses. Narveson misses another 44-yarder. He's missed 5 kicks on the year. For reference, Carlson missed 6 field goals all last year. I've already seen that stat. Don't worry. Carlson did miss like 5 extra points, though. I want to point out.
He missed a bunch of extra points.
He's missed more kicks, but in terms of field goals, I think Narveson's 1 away from him.
But at least the 49ers think he's worth trying out.
Yeah, Carlson's on the Niners now, which is
signed
weird.
him to their practice squad because their backup kicker that they've had for the last couple weeks,
his shoulder, but might play.
Has a shoulder injury.
It's clear.
After
it's unclear.
Moody is out on. Is he on IR? Is Moody on IR?
Yeah. Ooh, I don't know if they actually ended up putting him on IR, but he's expected to miss extended time. But let's focus on the Packers special teams for a second.
They were talking all game about how terrible he looked in warmups.
What are we going to do? What are we going to do, folks? Because it's not going well. You were hoping last week after he went 4-4 that would be a bounce back game and he'd be able to continue that momentum. But
more than just the bounce back, but they figured it out game.
Yeah, because they talked about coming into that game. It's like, oh, you had to change something with his plant leg. And you miss a 44-yarder in this game, and all that confidence kind of goes out the window. He did, follow it up by making a 41-yarder, I think it was, at the end of the game. So at least he ended on a make. But I made that same exact argument last year where it's like, oh, Anders Carlson, he never misses 2 in a row. Like, that's a really good quality to have. And it's like, no, you cannot spin zone missing every other kick into, oh, this is actually a good thing. No, that's not how it works. You cannot be 50% on field goals.
You should be making 9 out of 10 because he hasn't even kicked one over 50 yet.
He hasn't even attempted one over 50, and he has the most misses. He has the most misses in the league, and he has not attempted a field goal past 50 yards. He's like one of 3 kickers to miss from inside 40.
Is the longest one like 49 or 48 that he's attempted?
I think 49. He's attempted a 49-yarder. He's not attempted a 50-yarder. And I just don't know what you do. I simply don't know. I think you have to give him up till the trade deadline, but you might just need to overpay in a trade market for a kicker. But trading for a kicker never works. It never, ever works. I feel like they just fall apart the instant you show confidence in them. By trading for them, you have broken them by like putting pressure on them. You can't do that.
You got to convince them that, no, this is because somebody wants you so much.
No, that's the problem. You're putting pressure on them by trading for them.
It's pressure. Not that they're confidence broken because they've been discarded.
Yes. No, it's because like, oh shoot,
the expectations go up.
Yeah, they brought me in here to make these kicks. They just need to I don't know what they do. I just don't know. They might need to call one of these 1-5 teams about their kicker and hope. I don't know what you do.
You guys aren't going anywhere. Your kicker looks good. I like the cut of your
kicker's jib. Yeah. That's all I have to say about the special teams. I don't know what they're going to do about it, and it's going to lose them games. And you cannot win a Super Bowl with this kicking. You cannot win playoff games with this kicking. You will lose in the second round of the playoffs or earlier with this kicking.
Begging to be bitten in the you-know-what again.
Mm-hmm.
If the kicking is like this for the whole year.
And if the kicking is like this for the whole year, it's like, I hate to say it, but what's the point? You're gonna lose because you're gonna leave 6 points on the board at some point in the season. At some point in the season, they've already lost 2 games, actually, because you could argue they would have lost them anyways. But if you just look at the scoreboard at the end of the game, if you give them the points from the kicks they made, they're 6-0.
They're undefeated.
They're 6-0 if they give them the points from the kicks they missed. I mean,
yep.
But anyway, that's the special teams. Also, fumbling that punt was tough. But whatever.
Yeah, and I was like, just at that point, he should just fallen down because you weren't going to get anywhere.
There's a discussion being had on the internets and Packers Twitter of, Keyshawn's not getting any kick returns this year because they're just kicking it through the end zone. Do you just put him back at punt return to give him some juice, give some juice back there?
I've heard several people talk about, Nixon back at punt return instead of Reed because Reed's too valuable on offense. Of course, now Nixon's getting too valuable on defense.
I was going to say, but the thing with Nixon is he's never actually been a very good punt returner. Like, he's been a really good kick returner, but he did have a good return in this one. So
the return game was actually the best it's been all year, this game.
Yeah, I mean, they had that one big
Nixon had
return.
He had 60 yards on 2 kick returns and 39 on a punt return, and Reed had an 8-yard punt return. And so the kick returns and the punt returns are both season highs on the year. In fact,
one of those kick returns is fake, though. By the way, that was end of the first half, and the clock ran out. It doesn't matter. Yeah,
but in fact, this week broke a 4-week string where there were no kick returns at all, and they only had 1 kick return in week 1. So there was only 1 return attempt,
and the kick return in week 1
for this year
was not one you should have returned probably because you caught it 7 yards
of the game, that 24-yarder. So he didn't get to the 30, and on the year, Green Bay only had 15 yards on punt returns.
Mm-hmm.
So this year far exceeded their return production for the season.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
So a positive in special teams on the return department.
Yeah, I'm just still so caught up on the kicking because, I mean, you could argue it's cost them 2 games and it's going to cost them a lot more than that.
I'm looking for how much is in that glass. Maybe there's a little bit.
What is...
It's not... You're more of a glass isn't half empty. It is completely empty. I think there's a little water left in that glass.
What kickers are available? What kickers are just like... What are the bad teams in the league right now? Who's available? Could you trade for Nick Folk from the Titans? Could you trade for
who's it for the Pinheiro?
Pinheiro from the Panthers? I mean, I don't think he's not very good, but he's better than what we got. Could Daniel Carlson become available? Are the Raiders blowing it up? Maybe.
Are the Packers going to end up with the older
The better
Carlson brother?
Maybe. I mean,
Because the Raiders might be going on a fire sale.
Yeah, I hope so, and I hope Carlson would be included.
I hope that Crosby is not going to the Lions. We were talking about that earlier.
Exactly.
They're just going to trade away all of the good players for picks and start over. Who else is out there?
Oh my goodness, Amari Cooper to the Bills. Interesting. Very interesting.
Okay, I guess they lost out on the Adams sweepstakes, and now they're getting Amari Cooper.
Okay, very interesting. But anyway, let's wrap this thing up here.
What about the Browns kicker? Who's the Browns kicker?
It's not York. It's Dustin Hopkins. Yes. He'd be interesting. I mean, that's the thing. Like, let's just find it. We might just need to trade for a kicker. There might not be.
But at least options. Like we were saying before, they could have stuck with Joseph. Well, he wasn't good this week.
Exactly. But anyway, let's wrap things up here, though, Dad. And player of the game, who'd you have?
Oh, it's got to be Jordan Love. I mean,
got to be Jordan Love. Yeah, fantastic,
surgical out there, precise all over. He had like maybe a throw or two that wasn't quite spot on. But he was so good. So
freaking good. I mean, 4 touchdowns and the pick wasn't even really a pick. I mean, fantastic game from him. But yeah, so that does it. Packers win 34-13, moved 4-2 on the year. Keep an eye here. Check out Father Son Packer on Twitter, @FatherSonPacker. We tweet out whenever we have new episodes. We'll be doing an episode later this week talking about this upcoming game against the Texans, Dad. This could be a big-time game, Stroud versus Love. First time they'll play, which is really exciting. I think, 2 young rising stars in the league. So that'll be really exciting. Check out the Twitter for, when that episode comes out, and subscribe so when that episode comes out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Leave a comment, leave a review. We would really appreciate it. But Dad, until next time, go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go.